Hi everyone, it's Burgess from Tranquility in Art. Good morning, thanks for joining me today. I wanted to paint a harbour scene for you, and the method I want to use is the line and wash technique. So let's get started, shall we? So as you can see, I've already done the drawing in pencil, and I'm now going over the lines with a waterproof ink pen. Now at this stage, I really need to emphasize that a waterproof pen is absolutely essential here, because if you end up using any old pen, you're going to have a right royal mess on your hands. And this actually happened to me recently. So do make sure that the pen is actually run proof and waterproof. So what I'm doing here is just putting in the line work, and I'm not being very meticulous about where the lines are going or how straight they are. They're not meant to be accurate. It's not meant to be a geometrically accurate drawing or an architecturally accurate drawing. Just to get us just to get um, an idea, just to get a sense of the jetty and the buildings in the back. I'm using short strokes and just making sure that I'm not being very fussy about where the line work goes. Now here I'm using vertical strokes up and down to indicate the lines where the masts of the boats would be. Now in with the sky. I'm using my Hake brush here to wet down the entire sky with clear water. And I'm being particularly careful to try and make sure that the water doesn't run into the buildings, because the one thing I don't want is my sky color running into the roofs. Now I'm adding here a flat wash of ultramarine blue, and I'm adding it both to the sky and to the water area. And now I want to add some cloud work, and these are going to be very lightly done. And I've made it myself. It's a type of Payne's grey using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And I'm trying to mirror the clouds in the water area below. After the sky has dried, I then go in with the landmass, and for this I'm using burnt sienna, sometimes pure burnt sienna, but I'm also varying the wash tone by adding touches of ultramarine blue to it, and in some areas, black. I then decided to darken the land masses a bit more using burnt sienna, black, and a bit of ultramarine blue to the mix, just to give them a bit more definition and to bring them forward a little bit. I decided that the mast lines needed to be a little bit higher, so I'm going in with my waterproof ink pen just to lengthen them a bit here. And again, I'm not really fussy about them being straight or a little bit crooked, because this all lends to the character. I then go in and start painting the buildings. Now, most of the washes here I'm using are burnt sienna, either neat or a little bit more concentrated. The roofs are going to be usually mainly white, but I'm going to make them a little off-white so that they show up a bit more. And for that, I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna added to titanium white. Now the tricky part is the boats that I want to put in the distance right here. And I'm going to use these brush pens to do it. Now this is the tricky part where I'm going to try and give the impression of boats in the distance by using the tips of the brush pens to create shapes of boats. And I'm using various colors to do it. I want the line of boats to be multicolored and colorful. And now these brush pens are made of nylon. The tips are made of nylon hairs, so they behave like nylon brushes that you would use for painting in acrylics and even some watercolor brushes. And they work pretty well in that you can actually create broad strokes as well as fine strokes. So, and of course, as you can see in some areas, you can even do the dry brush technique. So I'm putting multicolored ones in. I'm using browns and blues and greens and some oranges and reds, just to give the impression of boats moored in that area. Now, one of the things I did find with these brush pens is that even though the packaging says that they are blendable, they come with a water brush. These brush pens are actually not blendable at all, not to the extent that we'd like them to be. Now, if you saw earlier, I tried to take a wet brush and take some of the color from the boat into the water to create a reflection underneath it, and I didn't get much color coming out at all. So they're not blendable the way the way the packaging says it is. I then decided to darken the land masses a bit more using burnt sienna, black, and a bit of ultramarine blue to the mix, just to give them a bit more definition and to bring them forward a little bit. I then went in with a bit more line work on the buildings by darkening the windows, adding some more definition to that jetty, and a little bit more on the boats. I thought, why not put some line work on the boats as well? Then went in my 3 signature birds, and then the tape removal process came in. After I'd removed the tape, something just didn't sit right. So what I did was I took the same brush pens that were the color of the boats and decided to accentuate the reflections in the water by adding squiggly lines under them to indicate the reflections of those boats. And that did actually help anchor the boats into the water, because before that they seemed like they were sitting in the middle of nothing, in sort of floating on the water but not in the water. And there we are with our harbour scene. I did want it to be simple. I didn't want the sky to be dramatic, or too much clutter in the foreground. I wanted everything to be in the middle distance where the harbour is. I wanted the focal point to be to be there. So I do hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you found it fun to watch or interesting to watch. I hope you liked the use of the brush pens. Do consider subscribing if you did, and give this video a thumbs up. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.